Okay, we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming back. I know it's been pretty intense. You will continue to get more intense. So just sit tight, huh? So this afternoon we are going to go into the sector roadmap, specifically the competency framework. All right. You notice there that there is a draft. All right, which means that it is a draft, and we are going to get your inputs for 1 month. All right, so then there'll be updates to it. Okay? 2 months, sorry, I keep saying 1 month. So 1 month we get your inputs, another month we'll work on it. All right? Before I introduce the Pricewaterhouse folks, just a quick run through of the people who were on the OAE Council Professional Development Subcom. So we have myself, Nicholas from Outward Bound. All right, and then we have Prof. Eugene Chew from SUSS, Ronald Wee, which is an independent outdoor educator, and we also have Jean C from NTUC. I think she had to go off. All right, but the rest of them they're all over here. All right, so we were the ones that engaged. At the first place, I think we were the ones that got together and think about the needs and what we wanted to do, and we got together with PwC, and then we put you're all familiar, the procurement out there, and then see who was the suitable one, and then we end up working with them. All right? Before we go into the PD study proper, just wanted to bring us back to 2022. Some of you may have been there at the outdoor conference. It was held at Republic Poly. All right? So there were a couple of discussion points there. The theme that emerged most strongly was really professional development. And one of the most pressing concerns was there, limited and underqualified workforce. All right? And these were the themes that came out from that. So there was a call for more unified standard certification for skills, looking for a common competency framework. And the center one I think is important is compensation as recognition of the work that we do. Involving more people and organizations in professional development training. Over there you have trainer competency certification. And right at the top there I think is very important, clear progression, pathways and support for freelancers. Right? And this was the development roadmap that was designed. You note that as we go through the slides, you will see for consultation at the top, this is where your inputs will be needed. So for today's session, we are really only zooming into the job and skills part, where we are talking about the framework, the career prospects, and improve access to upskilling. That means practically on the ground, if I'm a trainer, I know what's the framework, where am I going to go for training, who is going to provide the training. These are the things that we'll be talking about. And now I just want to do a quick introduction of the PwC team. Over here, Mr. Noel Goh, he's the partner. And we have Derek Yap, senior manager, and Joyce Ang. All right. At this moment, as I'm introducing, you may feel like, okay, this is a bit serious, awkward. Then I introduce them, then they're smiling. But we have been working with them for the past 5 months. All right. And I think some of you may find them familiar because they were the one that interviewed during the FGD and email you and try to get all of you together. All right. So I will leave them now to give you the meat of the study. And then at the end, we will take some questions.
Okay, good afternoon everyone. I'm Derek. So when we actually started this study, right, there's a few outcomes that we actually try to achieve. One is how can we actually develop a strong safety culture for OAE? Number two, how can we actually help you to build a purposeful career? 3, grow the sector. And lastly is to have a good experience for the OAE students. So to recap, this is what we have done so far. The studies take into consideration 3 key areas. One, we actually look into the macro trends. We actually reached out to a lot of you for focus group discussions, for interviews, and we also did a landscape scan, where we actually understand what are the international people are doing, people from America, the US, UK, New Zealand, how is their OE sectors like, and compare our sector with them, and take in some of the best practices. All right, from there, we actually try to understand what is the manpower requirement of the OE sector as a whole. Then we also deep dive into some of the pain points that you are actually facing during the FGD. And thank you so much for sharing with us your candid response on how do you feel about the OAE sectors. We actually took that into consideration. I can guarantee you that. Okay, and we also look into career progressions, all right, and the development, because we want to actually come up with a viable career path for you, from a junior educator all the way to a master and chief educator. What is it like? What are some of the skill sets that you need to actually pick up? What are some of it you need to upskill yourself? So later on, my colleague will be sharing that a bit more detail with you. And lastly, the most important one is remuneration. How are we compared to the parallel industry? Okay, how can we actually come up with a competency-based salary structure for the OAE sector itself? So these are 3 key areas that we actually dive into and research on. So once again, I'd like to actually take this opportunity to thank the community for spending so much time with us. All right. In total, we actually conducted about 11 focus group discussion. We actually reached out to about 107 stakeholders. Okay, and we also spam you, double quotation, with surveys. All right, and really thank you so much for responding to our surveys. We get about 175 response, which is very good. All right, and this allowed us to actually understand you better. We did a parallel desktop research on parallel industry, as I mentioned, on other countries. We do a comparative analysis on the Singapore workforce. How much are the freelancers are being paid? Like your Grab drivers, Shopee, Deliveroo, and all this. Find a bit more yoga instructors, uniform groups, how much are they being paid, and compare with our OAE sectors. And we also conducted one-on-one interview with at least 10 OAE stakeholders. This is how extensive we have done to find out more about OAE, all right, and come up with some recommendations to actually improve your career, to actually attract new talents and retain talents into the sector. Okay, so this is what we have found so far. OAE continue to remain the key element of our Singapore education system. What we see is that every year, we are looking at about 145,000 or more students taking part in OAE programs. Okay, and I think the ministries and also everybody recognize that OAE is the best way to actually build their characters for character development. And there will be more emphasis on outdoor educations. To support this, we actually found that we need at least about 496 educators a week to actually support the sector as a whole. And during this time, we also understand from you that there's some shortfall in OAE educators. Many of you are actually taking up multiple roles. There's a bit of fatigue. This was also being shared with us during the FGDs and also the interview as well. Okay. Then we look at career development. How can we actually retain and attract talent into the sector? When we ask about the career growth perceptions, about 58% of respondents actually indicate positive response. Many of you actually talk about how can I actually gain new competencies, or how can I actually have career advancement opportunities, right? Whether be it you are moving within the sectors or outside of the sectors. These are some of the main key reasons. Okay, so therefore it's actually important to have a clear career path for everyone, a detailed role competencies, robust career pathways, standardize the reference point of competencies, and also, most importantly, change of the job perceptions from instructors to be called OAE educators. I think this is what we have heard. Then as we look at remunerations, we actually did a comparison. Okay, the one on the left, students, people who have actually graduated from the diploma of outdoor educations. We recognize that currently there is a lower median remunerations as compared to the other poly graduate cohorts. When it comes to independent contractors, there's a high degree of varied remunerations across different companies. All right, and the remuneration quantums are also lower as compared to parallel industry. Later on, we will actually show you what is our recommended salary and remunerations. Lastly is full-time employees. As we begin to study people who actually are in these sectors for a period of time, we also see how their salary grows and compare with other parallel industries. Whether are they growing in tandem or are they lagging behind? What we see so far is that the remuneration growth tend to lag with the parallel industry itself. These are some of the findings that we have. So, next, I think I'll pass it on to my colleagues to share with you some recommendations that we have actually proposed. Yeah?
Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, great. I think we have just reached at the point where, it gets very exciting because you might be questioning, what's in for all of you, okay? So I think, first of all, thank you all for carving out time. I know this is really precious and very important to you. And for the past, 10 odd years that I've actually worked in the workforce advisory, managing some of these important career advisory and even like hiring retention, as part of employee experience. I think number one key aspect is that career structure or pathway is not just to fulfill a need for org design. I think more importantly, to contextualize to the sector, OAE sector is the fact that today is the inaugural launch of the Singapore standards, and therefore, it increases the importance of us defining a clear differentiation of the different job roles, right? Whether you're a junior educator, a senior educator, the responsibility, your autonomy, everything has to be differentiated. And therefore, the career pathway is the first step to kind of like help you understand your job role better. Secondly, we also talk about professionalizing the sector. Now, professionalism is not just about how you dress, what you speak, but it's also about your belief, right? How do you see yourself as an educator? It's not just about, being a coach or instructor. It's really fulfilling your role in educating, nurturing the students, and also fulfilling some of these learning outcomes that you strongly believe that the sector should have. Right? And with that in mind, and having consulted the industry, we have actually developed this career pathway. All right. So what we are saying is that today you may be a junior educator. Now, it doesn't mean that you have to necessarily move, forward to a senior educator and then the lead and then to become like a master. But in fact, you also have the opportunity to kind of like transition your career, from outdoor education to the curriculum design track. Or some of you who really also want to further explore the safety operations track, you can actually have the opportunity to even transition over. Now, some of you, especially as the independent contractor, you may be specialized in your own area. And those are also the opportunities that the sector can offer. And the important key message of this is that, regardless of where you are today, there's already a pathway laid out for you, and it's really up to you to actually decide, where your career should be. And again, there are also organizations that say, hey, actually, we are a small company, all right? Our educators are also double-hatting. Now, the thing is, this career pathway is designed for you to kind of like refer to, and it can be further tailored to the needs of your organization, all right? And of course, during the public consultation, we will also further seek your feedback to kind of like improve the pathways and also kind of like take your recommendations into consideration, all right? Okay, competencies. Now, you see, if you actually pay attention to the board, there are, some of these key themes that we have laid out. And just to Derek's point earlier, we actually looked at different countries in US, in UK, New Zealand, Australia to understand what's their model for competency framework. So we found that actually, there are actually similar themes and similar core areas such as your leadership skills, your environmental stewardship, and also the teaching learning become very important for OAE. And having consulted the community as well during FGD, I think these are some of the key takeaways, especially for safety operations, because at the end of the day, you are responsible for your customers, which is not just, the schools, but also the end users, such as the students. So we have actually highlighted 5 key competency areas supported by 38 competency skills. And these skills are also validated against Skills Future framework. And if you can see here, right, the critical core skills is actually industry agnostic. So these are the same core skills that have been applied in different sectors, all right? And in total, there are 16 critical core skills, but you know what? Let's focus on the top 10 skills, which we think that, is important for OAE, all right? And these are also some of the soft skills that will help you in facilitation, in working with different stakeholders, and also helping you to better manage some of your audiences better. And then, of course, you have the specialist skills, whether it's, kayaking, high elements. These are the specific activities that you can acquire from level 1, 2, 3. It really depends on the areas of focus. Teaching and learning skills essentially is really to allow you to effectively design, develop the curriculum, and also to better manage different students of different backgrounds, different needs. And therefore, we have also highlighted here psychological aid, especially for students with special needs, which require, special attention. So those are also things that we found very interesting and also good for you to kind of consider acquiring these skills. And of course, leadership skills, these would be skills that, will help you better motivate, guide your team, and it will span across 2 parts. One is the strategic leadership, and the other one is actually on the operational leadership. The difference between these two is one is the ability to have the vision, all right, that strategic planning, and it's more on really drive the team in achieving some of the business outcomes and also the outdoor learning outcomes. The other part on the operational leadership is, when it comes to execution, this is where you really drive the team to success, okay? And last but not least, like I mentioned earlier, safety and management skills. We all recognize that this part is very important, and let's not, forget to kind of acquire first aid skills and even ability to respond to incident or even emergency situations, okay? Now, with the competency framework, then we also looked at potentially what does it mean for every single job role. And we have actually designed a job description here to help you appreciate the different job roles better. Now, let's firstly look at the job role description. So the description here, we also outline the responsibility for each of these job roles. Over here is this junior educator. So for instance, right, this junior educator, he or she has to work under supervision of a lead in order to kind of spearhead some of the outdoor education activities. And if you can see, when it comes to skills and competencies, it's all level 1 and basic. So when it comes to proficiency, we understand that, for junior educator, it will be the lower level, like level 1 or basic proficiencies. But of course, as you kind of move ahead, become master in your role, then of course it will be level 5, level 6. It depends on the seniority, okay? So these are all for consultation. And of course, when we look at the specialist skills, again, it depends on the certificates, the professional certs that you have, and then we can actually also further validate from there. So I think this is really a sample of job role description that we have prepared, and we will be more than happy to hear your thoughts. Okay? Thank you so much.
Hi. My next part is the most exciting one. It talks about numbers. Talk about numbers. My usual clients are in a boardroom, and then there's less than 10 people. They are remuneration committees of big companies. And so the largest, just a little bit of caveat, the largest company I've ever consulted for had $30 trillion in revenue combined. And it's a Chinese entity. right? The largest bank I've ever worked with, when I went into the room, assets under management were 3 trillion, right? So those are my usual clients. When I walk into a room, there are 10 people in there. They're all lions, small size, big size. I just gone into their cave, and I'm human, right? I'm this little lamb going to be eaten, and that's why I told your council members. I said, okay lah, I think these people are okay. You guys are decent. You're not those, those captains of industry. But it's interesting that before you get into the numbers, you want to know how we got the data. So my colleague Derek went into part of that explanation earlier. We just want to assure you that the data was collected from everything from phone calls we made, surveys we made, groups we had, and we met some of you, others that volunteered the information. Republic Poly gave us their data. They had a graduate employment survey. And then after all of that gathering, we went into industry data. We went and looked at our competitors actually have salary surveys of different industries. We look at that data, right? And then we went to MOM's database. They publish every year a labor force database for sanity check, right? Because if MOM say a certain number, then we say a certain number, throw already, right? Cannot already. So we have to sanity check. So we did all of that, and eventually when you see the numbers later slides, it's because of that. And that robust process is important, because otherwise the numbers will come out wrong. Actually, the most trying was the platform workers. It was very hard to get that data, because everybody will report below. They will not, everyone says a certain amount, the platform companies will say a certain amount, and when we interviewed the people on the ground doing the actual work, they'll say a certain amount, and everything is like jumbled. So in the end, we took a median, right? But platform was really hard. And if you think about building a competency-driven salary framework, it sounds very complex, but actually it's not. You start with the data, and then you link it to the competencies. And as you're doing this, you need to think about some things. And for us, independent contractors, we had a huge conversation with the council about what independent contractors mean. Are they freelancers? And the language and the intention behind these people, and why they exist and what they do and how important they are to the industry, etc. We went into those values, and then specifically from there, we went into, can it be sustainable? Is that an issue? And it was. And from the consultation they told us, they said, look, as you're doing all these groups, as you're bringing all this data in, you will hear this. And so these 4 factors are nothing new to, I think, the audience here. And they are the ones that guided us as we begin to look at the data and sanitize the data. And when you think about the numbers, right, and this is very interesting. So if you think about, as a professional, I started as a professional looking at remuneration in companies. And they teach you that there's this whole philosophy called the 3 Ps. Pay for position, pay for person, and pay for performance. Some companies, like Shell, for example, early days, oil and gas companies like Shell, they said pay for potential, right? But eventually they got rid of it because you can't measure potential. It's in the future. So really pay for person, pay for position, and pay for performance is real. So it explains itself, right? You're paying someone for the position they are in the organization, the work they do, the context in which the environment they operate in, all of that. And then the person, what are the specialized competency, skills, etc., that they bring to the job, right? And then the 3rd P, as you understand it, is performance. How is that related to the business outcomes, to the client outcomes, etc.? And that undergirds all of this work. And then there are 4 different levers here. If you look at that, remuneration levels on that green bar, in parallel industries, the landscape of Singapore labour force, the competency-linked wage progression, and the fair and justifiable wage system. That means it has to be progressive. It has to grow over time. Because nobody we know, out of all the industries I've worked with many industries, and doing similar work, nobody wants stagnant pay, right? Because there's inflation, there's all this. And especially now, you see that volatile international thing happening with all the tariffs, etc. Everybody's, jigged out of this. So before we go into this and the numbers, you see some of these numbers, right? And eventually you see the rest. But before I show you everything else, I need to explain to you that a point in time was taken. And that point in time was December 2024. That's when we completed the work, and we had to make the decision based on the data up till then, right? So this was true up to December 2024. And then Trump got into office. And as they say, the rest is history, right? So if you tell us, no, this and what PwC did, not very accurate, didn't take into account the last 4 months or 5 months, I would argue that you're right? But bring yourself back to the time we finished this report, right? And that's the context, right? So if you can, and because this is a consultative process, so this number is not written in stone, it's just a guideline. This is the point in time we show you, and everything, as we know it, will stabilize at some point, right? And at some point, if it's close to this, is this number. If it's not, then you adjust, right? And that's the process. You look on the left bar, you have a specialist track, senior educator, and junior educator. And then you have a full-time and independent. Full-time and independent. You see these numbers. And then when you think about the independent contractors, you see the specialist track, it says 4 hours per session. So that money value is per session. 143 is per session. It's not like senior educator, 3 day, 2 night. Because that's the session that we looked at. Understand? So that's how you read this graph. Right? So that's the difference. And independent contractors here also 3 day, 2 night for junior educators. So if you think about the numbers here, it's written that way. The full-time is on an annualized basis. That means you have to divide this by 12. Right? So that's how you read the numbers. We saw that when we look at parallel, as Derek has shared, right, earlier, across the board, most of the data showed that you're either on par or slightly lower as an industry. But there are certain industries like tourism, they are much higher. Right? You primarily because they have variable rewards in tourism that cannot be accounted for. Because they take tips, they take all these other things, variable components that actually rises their pay or lowers, right? And so we looked at how the data, when we think about pay data, when we want to progress this, so that there is a progressive remuneration as we go along. And as you see the numbers, it's about 4% growth annually. And if you look at all the database that we have, we're going to share this data, right? Are we going to share this data publicly later? We are? Yes, we are, right? So we are doing. So some of you want to take pictures, you can. But it will be given to you at some point, or at least you can get it from somewhere. It's because it's going to be a consultative process. But if you look at the 4% growth, again, think back to December 2024. At that time, most companies, most organizations, most industries, growth is 4%. And that's normal, right? During COVID, I have seen up to 8% growth. Because there were times where certain industries needed more people, like nursing, for example. They needed more people, so they were willing to pay more. And then there was a wage increase, almost double the usual number. But generally, year on year, it's a 4% growth. So this is a normal progression, right? So if in your consultation process, when you ask about the numbers, it is based on this normal progression of 4% across all industries. Right, so that's what data shows. So key takeaways, I have, and I'm going to finish already, so just 4 points. The first being macroeconomic trends and demand. So just to reiterate what Derek has said, that the sector actually we really need the talent. So he said that in his earlier slide, he says 496, right? So this room, roughly what, 200-300 people? Yeah. If you add another half of this room, that's the number of educators we need. So you can imagine this room plus another 1 row of people. That's the whole industry in terms of the needs, as per the design of the study, right? You can imagine in your mind. When you think about the cohort that you have to work with, the students, etc., 145 to 150,000, you think of the indoor stadium, where at full capacity, 15,000 can sit down comfortably. So 10 times that. You're training 10 times that. Just imagine in your mind's eye the amount of people you're training. I mean, when you say 145, 150,000 people, you can't imagine because it's just a number. But if you can imagine 15 indoor stadiums. If you've been indoor stadium before, you know how big that place is. You fill it up with people, maximum 15,000 people. 10 times of that. You just imagine in your mind's eye. There's a lot of people. Right? And you guys, this small group in here where you can see if your first just look like that, one glance, is responsible for all these lives. Your role is really important. Right? I need to stress that. Talent development. So the whole process of talent development is, again, another journey that we're taking. So we showed you the competency framework, again, work in progress, consultation, etc. But what it means is that as you engage with this process, you're going to help define how your talents look like. Some of you believe that you are there. Others believe, yes, there's a lot more progress to be done, etc. All those inputs are important because you're at the stage now in this roadmap that you're defining. And we've done the initial discovery. Now you're going to help them discover even more and define it. And these next 2 months are very critical, right? Because it's very hard to, and I know David shared with me and a lot of different council members shared with me that you're going to consistently push to redefine. But at some point, right, it will solidify, right? So you being at this amicable, malleable stage where you can shape and is very important. The framework. If you think about a competency framework, first you have to define, as we did, what we believe are the key competencies, and we do a sanity check in the end with the council, with some of the experts in the field, and then we came back and we drew that down. But really, at the end of the day, is you guys, you have to look at the data, you have to look at the competencies and say, for example, with the critical core skills on the right side, and we picked 10, right? Another word for that, if you do competencies, another word for those skills are what they call critical enabling skills. That means without these skills on the right of that frame, you can't learn new skills. By the way, AI cannot do that for you. That part of the thing is AI-less. The soft skills you have will be with you forever. Right? When experts look at skills per se, when they look at critical and enabling skills, they have the most shelf life. Right? And if organizations invest in those skills, they will last forever with you and you'll stay with you. And it's agnostic to which organization or which industry you work in. It stays with you for life. So if you only have so much time to invest, you want to do a lot of that. Then the hard specialist skills you need, because without the hard specialist skills, you can't do some of the specialist work. Right? And give you an example. I don't know your industry that well, but for example, if I speak to my doctor and I find out he didn't go to medical school, I think he's a quack, right? I think he doesn't know medicine. I won't let him treat me. Right? So there are certain professions, their specialist skills are written in stones. Right? And so it's important as you get the specialist training. Some of you will do better than others. But as you grow in that, you will be valued for that. That's why we go by per session, the data, not how many days you are there, because you won't be, right? Technically. And then the remuneration, that last part that we showed you. Again, is a snapshot, and again, I reiterate, 2024 December, right? Understand that things will settle down economically across the world, and believe me, it will settle down. That's what we believe. Right, as a firm, globally, etc., etc. But all the companies out there, all the employees out there have the same worries as you do. So everybody's in this together. Not just Singapore, but the whole world. Right? So as we enter into this, I really hope that you would speak up, you will bring out nuances that we didn't find, and that you bring them up as well. And I think more thoughts, more explanation will do better. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Noah.
Okay, I think we are a little bit behind time. This is the final slide. Really don't want to belabor the point, but we all know that your skill set is important. That would allow you to have a career and allow you to have a better pay, right? But now the career pathways are not clear because the skill sets that is required is also not regulated across the same industry. All right, so later we will move into the discussion to talk about the competency framework. At this point, I just want to highlight that in the PD study, there were a lot of topics that came up. And we are really only zooming into the competency framework. There were issues like procurement, the demand, all the different operational items associated with demands that are very close to our heart. But today is really about supply and manpower. Okay? I saw a lot of you taking pictures. The handphone come out when the salary come out. All right. So the discussion later is not about the salary, but really about the circle that you saw with the different skill sets. And on the wall, you can see the papers that are over there. All right. So we are not going to take any questions now. But like Evan said, we got a few questions, but we hope they were answered during the presentation. If not, we will chat more later. All right. So that's all. Thank you.
Just a final thought. Regarding the wage structure that was proposed, don't think that tomorrow that's your pay. Let's put it outside, okay? Right now, this is based on the competencies that are described for each of the job roles. And then so you must take a look at the job roles first. What are the requirements, the ability to do, the competencies, then it's closely associated to the recommended jobs. We are, I think, nowhere at this point. But it's just a visual of what you can expect when the jobs are fully populated by the competencies. Essentially, if the one job role has 25 competencies, and that person has that 25 competencies, then if the person is hired to do that job, that is the recommended wage for that level. You understand that? Yeah, so it's all tied together. Don't just jump to the number and say, tomorrow I'm going to be paid for that. No. We're definitely not going to do that because we're not there yet. You right? Okay. So before we go into the engagement, we would like the co-chair of the OAE Council to give us a closing, because right now we're going to split into smaller groups eventually. We're not coming back already. So this is, in a way, closing remarks.
Thanks, Evan, and thanks to Joyce, Derek, Noel. And I know there's been a lot said and downloaded, but it is a good and positive development. And so I'll just wrap us for now by just reminding us again that what you see here is helping us do an acronym called AID, AID. We're in the business of assurance. So whatever we do here, we are buying assurance for the public, our customers, our participants, but also assurance for ourselves, our sector and our people, our staff. We also are in the business of making sure that we are delivering impactful outcomes. So impact in terms of not just safety, but quality, and not just the experiential parts of your program, but national outcomes of making sure that we are nurturing a next generation that is resilient, but also older ages that continue to team build and all that. Which brings me to my last D, which is, with this, it allows you to diversify into new opportunities. We have to be looking beyond our current markets. There's early childhood, as mentioned in the morning, there's active aging. We also have corporates and clients who are in need of team building, leadership development. Those are our new business areas. So as we build our assurance, we're clear about our impact, we can diversify into new markets and make sure that our sector is healthy and resilient. Thank you very much. I wish you a fruitful discussion.